Hey, what's up guys, it's Aris and welcome to the darkest Tennessee iceberg, one half of the horror highway. I hope you guys had a good Christmas, good New Year's, etc. Good holidays. Sorry if I sound a little weird in some of these. I recorded these like in portions. Some of them were like before New Year's, some of them were on the 1st, and there were still people in my house and I don't want to be too loud. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. And yeah, let's get into it. A comb grave is a type of grave that features two slabs of rock, sandstone, or sheet metal that form an empty inverted V shape or comb over the length of the grave. They're also referred to as tent graves, as the slabs of rock resemble a tent. No one really knows the exact origin of the comb graves, but according to legends, local myths maybe, I don't know, they're just types of graves that were built in the 1800s to deter grave robbers. Comb graves are unique to the southern United States and have been found in Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, and West Virginia. They are most often found in cemeteries along the Cumberland River in Tennessee, where the practice may have originated. The Tennessee Cave Creature. There's this Cherokee word that I don't know how to pronounce, but it apparently translates to stone dress. It was a creature believed to inhabit Tennessee and western North Carolina. In Tennessee, a creature described as a dwarf Bigfoot or Slothfoot was sighted in the Hamblin County cave. In 2009, Leslie recounted an encounter with an unusual creature inside the cave in Hamblin County. The described being measured approximately 4 foot in length, possessed human features with hairless facial skin, and exhibited white skin. Its body was covered in brown hair, featuring short legs and robust paws, with flattened claws. Notably, the creature demonstrated an ability to climb cave walls and freeze in place. Leslie speculated that the creature might be akin to a smaller cousin of Bigfoot, but I'm not sure. Kind of weird, but I thought it was pretty cool, so I added it. The Tennessee Ghost Dog. This cryptid is, I guess, also a ghost, because of the name, and it's a dog mostly spotted in eastern Tennessee. It is described as a large black dog. People who claim to see it says that it growls and barks at locals. It also keeps locals up at night. It is also said that the dog sometimes bites people before it disappears. And yeah, that's pretty much all I could find for this one. It's just a ghost dog. The Knot Deer. The knot deer is a creature said to inhabit the Appalachian Mountains, with most of the sightings being in the state of Tennessee. Its appearance is easily described as that to be of a deer, but that is only at first glance. People who have seen it have described it that upon further inspection, its joints weren't right. Sometimes it is described as mostly joints, sometimes moose-like. Also, another thing people say is that it has eyes like a predator, or even that it has multiple eyes. Almost every report has included that the creature just felt off, and that it was apparent that it held some sort of sentience, the ability to feel emotion and sensation. People do say that the creature doesn't attack unless it's provoked, but it does approach people. Bigfoot and the ranking. So, every state has Bigfoot sightings, and Tennessee, on Bigfoot Research Organization, has 104 sightings reported to the organization. There might be more, but I'm just using that site for reference. I assume it's just the sightings that have been reported to their organization. Like I said, there might be more. The Tennessee Wildman. The origins of this cryptid goes all the way back to the 1800s in McNairy County, Tennessee. One of the stories of his origins is that a circus freak showman somehow captured the cryptid. He then proceeded to put the Wildman on display for everyone to see. Eventually, it did escape. The description for the Wildman is very similar to Bigfoot and Sasquatch, but it is said to have more human-like features. He supposedly has dark gray hair, or dark ginger hair, and it's around 7 feet tall, has piercing red eyes, a smell similar to a skunk ape, and it also yells out an aggressive war cry. The monster is also known to target dogs and women. The last known sighting of the Wildman took place over 20 years ago, near Elizabethton, Tennessee. Rob Phillips, along with his cousin, were on a night hike to Bee Cliffs. Through the rain, they noticed something strange in the forest. Everything had become completely silent. The sound of snapping twigs broke the silence, followed by a horrible, inhuman screech, unlike the hikers have ever heard before. Both men fled separately throughout the darkened wood, with Philip soon finding safety behind a tree. It wasn't long after he spotted the Wildman clinging to a nearby tree about 15 feet away. Rob heard his cousin break for the hill and he followed him. So yeah, apparently this Bigfoot variant attacks people, which is pretty scary considering how people describe Bigfoot. Wampus cat. This cryptid is one already covered in the darkest Texas Iceberg. Check that video out. And the sightings also happened in Tennessee, so I figured I should at least mention it here. The Tennessee red cheetah. Okay, so I'm not too sure if this is like an actual phenomenon that happens down there, but when I first started researching, there was a page about this cryptid on Cryptid Wiki, but then a day later when I went to go write about it, that page got deleted, so I'm not sure. I'm just adding this just to let y'all know that there was this on there, but now it isn't. Crocodingo. The crocodingo is believed to reside in various regions of Scott County, Tennessee, with Oneida being a particularly notable location. Described as a four-legged being, it combines the body of a dingo with the head of a crocodile, which they're just making Pokemon, I guess. The sightings of the creature tend to peak from May through July, while it is often linked to the modern-day legend of sewer alligators. Reports of encounters of this creature in wooded areas are also prevalent. The crocodingo shares a lot of similarities with other cryptids, such as the dogagator and the I don't know if I should say this word, raccoonigator, I guess, except without the rat. But any confirmed connection between these creatures, just like I don't know, I doubt they exist. The origins are pretty unknown. Many think it's paranormal, but a lot of other people think it's extraterrestrial. Anyways, one of the more notable stories that I found while researching is on the evening of July 31st, 1839, a guy named Lemon observed an unearthly green nebulous glow resembling the northern lights behind his house, in which the area is now Huntsville, Tennessee, or around there. He then grabbed his two dogs and began heading inside, and then a dazzling light, described as a perfectly straight bolt of lightning, streaked through the sky and disappeared into the nearby woods. Although the glow had dissipated, Lemon reported that minutes later, a peculiar creature, he thinks alien, and moving swiftly, was spotted traversing the woods, and he then linked the creature to a dog with the head of an alligator. And when investigators asked him, Lemon added, there was an awful charnel stench lingering in the air, and something else, a dreadful presence, something that could potentially drive a person to madness if exposed for an extended period. So yeah, I guess this could also be in the alien area, but I don't know. Layer 2. The Tennessee Terror. The legend of the Tennessee Terror started around 1822, when a sea serpent rose to the surface of the Tennessee River, and a local farmer was fishing at the same time. The serpent was apparently so terrifying that the farmer died soon after, from fear alone. And in 1827, another farmer saw something similar to a bluish yellowish creature built like a giant snake in the Tennessee River. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this half. Catzilla. Okay, so this goes together with the last entry, but I'm not too sure if Catzilla refers to the same cryptid as before, the Tennessee Terror, but Catzilla also refers to a 500-pound catfish. So yeah, Catzilla refers to both Tennessee Terror and then a 500-pound catfish. The legend of the giant snake in Tennessee River eventually evolved into a giant catfish, and I will add that catfish of that size do exist in the world, but none of them have ever been documented in Tennessee, so I don't know if I should call Catzilla, the catfish, a cryptid, or if I should call the Tennessee Terror Catzilla, if you get what I'm saying. But yeah, so I just thought I'd have both of these on the iceberg. The White Bluff Screamer. Around the 1920s, in the small town of White Bluff, Tennessee, there is a banshee-like creature that lures people away from their home. And the first story of this creature goes as, a family was laying down to sleep when suddenly they were awoken by an ear-piercing scream, and after several nights of this happening, the man of the house decided to go look for the scream, and so he did. He followed the scream, and the scream eventually led the man back to his own house. When he walked inside, he found that his family had been slayed. and so the White Bluff Screamer is believed to be something like a banshee, and I'm not sure, but I mean, maybe it is. The Flintville Monster. This cryptid is similar to Bigfoot, but apparently it is more aggressive and dangerous. It lives in the Flintville area of Tennessee. It torments the inhabitants of the area. The people who have seen the Flintville Monster claim that the cryptid stands at about 7 feet tall and to have a very similar smell to a skunk. One of the most famous accounts of a person seeing the monster is from a mother in the 1970s. The mom claimed that she saw a large man-like ape running towards her son, who was playing in the field. She apparently ran to intercept the Flintville Monster, and she barely got to her son before the cryptid did. She managed to get back to her house and call the police. The police then investigated, but when they went into the woods, all they managed to find was 16-inch footprints and blood. Yeah, I don't know, maybe the way I imagined it is that the cryptid was extremely fast or a lot closer, so it was kind of surprised that the mom got to her son and to the house before the cryptid got to them. The Reelfoot Lake Monster. The Reelfoot Lake Monster is a creature that is said to inhabit Reelfoot Lake, if you couldn't tell. Located in northwestern Tennessee, Reelfoot Lake is a natural lake formed by the 1811 through 1912 New Madrid earthquakes, and it is known for its unique features and diverse wildlife. The legend of the Reelfoot Lake Monster just adds like a mysterious aura to the area. Descriptions of the Reelfoot Lake Monster vary, but it is often portrayed as a serpent-like creature or a lake monster with a long neck and a humped back. The legend has persisted for many years, with occasional reports here and there, and stories have just been passed down through local folklore about the creature. In my mind, I think it's really cool that like maybe, I don't know if there's snakes in Tennessee. Like during that earthquake or when the lake was formed, something evolved up there to become that, but I doubt it. So yeah, just my headcanon, I guess. Layer 3. UFO rankings. So Tennessee is ranked 41st out of all the states in the United States in UFO sightings, with 32 sightings per 100,000 people. I am getting this information from satelliteinternet.com, just so you guys know. Also, let me apologize. This video is shorter than I thought it was going to be, because I figured there'd be some more alien stuff in Tennessee, but apparently there isn't. There's like no real big cases, and I'm sorry if there's anyone from Tennessee that knows any cases that I just didn't find. Let me know. At one point I even asked ChatGPT, and it said the same thing, that there was no real famous cases. So again, I'm sorry, and on to the next one. Loretta Lynn's Ranch. It is located just west of Nashville. The historic 1800s residence belonging to country music legend Loretta Lynn. I don't listen to country music, so I'll be honest, I don't know who this is. It has a weird history. There are rumors circulating about the property being haunted by spirits of the deceased, including Civil War soldiers, a grieving young woman mourning her lost child, and a person who formerly owned the land. Loretta and her family experienced peculiar occurrences during their time at the house, such as encounters with ghostly figures, unusual sightings, and mysterious sounds. And upon conducting research, the family found that these accounts aligned with the historical background of the property. The ranch occupies the site of a Civil War battle, and reportedly over 18 Confederate soldiers are buried on the land. The ranch does offer tours every day except for Monday and Tuesday. I don't know if it's related to anything spooky or because of its history, mayhaps both. Visitors can also explore multiple museums and the campground. God, that sounds like an ad. Not supposed to be an ad, I'm sorry. Layer 4. The 1974 Super Outbreak. This is the second largest tornado outbreak for a single 24-hour period. It lasted from April 3rd to April 4th, with a total of 148 tornadoes making landfall in 13 states, one of which was Tennessee. In total, there was 45 casualties from this tornado outbreak in the state. 2 of these tornadoes would hit the town of Tanner, the first causing 28 fatalities, and 10 minutes before this tornado dissipated, a second one would hit, both tornadoes lasting about 90 minutes, and the second tornado claiming 16 lives, with 457 people being injured by both tornadoes. Both tornadoes were F5 on the Fukita scale, meaning they were reaching speeds at the minimum of 261 miles per hour and up to 381 miles per hour. Bushy Mountain State Penitentiary. This prison opened up in 1896 and did operate for around 100 years. This was actually Tennessee's first maximum security prison. Okay, so the death penalty was never carried out in this prison, but many still died due to working in the mines or because of the other inmates. The Tennessee prison, which this closed its doors in 2009, it gained notoriety for a daring escape back in 1977, led by James Earl Ray, the guy who shot at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Ray and his crew tried to escape, but they were quickly caught and put back in custody. Fast forward to present day. The prison basically now just stands there. People who want to investigate paranormal activity or just urban explore do go here, and it's a popular spot. And the ghosts that inhabit the area do things like nudges, scratches, touches, growls, screams, and sometimes you could hear the spirits run. And I mean, just basically ghost things. And I didn't really find a spot that said banging, but I assume banging on the jail cells as well. But I'm not sure on that. Benton fireworks disaster. On May 27th, 1983, near Benton, Tennessee, there was an unlicensed fireworks factory. The fireworks being produced in these factories were M80s and M100s, which were banned under federal law. It was around 9:15 when a mix of M80s, M100s, flash powders, and other chemicals were ignited and caused an explosion. The prevailing theory stating that it was a spark from an electrical drill setting it all off. In the initial explosion, 11 people would be killed and 1 person would be injured. The explosion would send body parts flying, as well as the barn itself, where the fireworks were being made, and witnesses claimed to have seen a mushroom cloud above where the explosions happened. The blast was heard at least 20 miles in Cleveland. There were many 911 calls about the explosion. 1958 Oak Ridge nuclear critical accident. The White 12 National Security Complex would be the site of the first nuclear critically accident in a processing facility on U.S. soil. One of the more tragic things about this is those who were exposed to radiation would have to suffer through slow process of its poisoning. The source of all of this seems to stem from the C1 wing on the White 12 facility, as at 2:05 p.m., as just before placing the system back into operation, a drain leak test was required where water was supposed to be going, but urine nitrate was taking its place, leading enough to collect to cause a reaction, which caused alarms to go off and lead to everyone evacuating. 8 people would end up being exposed to high levels of radiation. 7 of the 8 are dead from an article I read, which was dated June 15th, 2023. And the article where Omar got all this information, because Omar wrote this, the only surviving person that was exposed to high levels of radiation, 165 REM, states that he didn't even feel when he was exposed to the critically, and only knew when people were being checked for radiation poisoning. The historic Scott County Jail. This jail was built in 1904, and many of Scott County's most dangerous inmates were jailed here. The jail has a history that includes the unsolved murder of a sheriff, the lynching of inmates, and numerous men and women housed within the cells. The haunting is, I guess, pretty normal. Stuff like shadow figures, noises, cold spots, etc. The jail is now a museum and also has paranormal tours. Not sponsored, not an ad. And even has an escape room, which I've always wanted to do, but I've never had the chance to. Memphis Race Riot of 1866. Happening in May 1866, only a year after the surrender of the Confederacy, the Euro-Americans of Tennessee would still be unwilling to share the same rights as the newly freed African-American slaves, resulting in a riot in Memphis. In this riot, 46 African-American people would be killed, 70 wounded, and in total 16 buildings would be burned down, 12 churches and 4 schools. And to top off all that savagery, 4 African-American women would end up being raped. This riot, among many, would end up showing Congress that the 14th Amendment needed to be passed, as well as the Civil Rights Bill. Origin of the KKK. So I will start this entry with, I didn't know that this was in Tennessee. A viewer suggested it. Appreciate it. In 1865, in Pulaski, Tennessee, former Confederate troops Frank McCord, Richard Reed, fucking Mr. Fantastic? What? No, that's Reed Richards. Never mind. John Lester, John Kennedy, J. Calvin Jones, and James Crow, would come to try and make a secret organization / fraternity whose whole purpose was to push back against the rights given to black men by intimidating them from voting. The first Grand Wizard of the KKK was formerly Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest, and in 1869 he would unsuccessfully try to disband the Klan because by 1867 the growth of the Klan had eventually led it to start to become a openly violent and terroristic group. And honestly, he probably should have seen this coming. In 1870 and 1871, there were acts enacted by Congress in order to break up and arrest the KKK members. After this, the KKK will slowly fall back down to lower members and stay in the shadows until they rise up again around 1910, but that's a whole different thing entirely. Layer 5. Bell Witch Cave. The Bell Witch haunting is a famous and well-documented legend that originated in the early 19th century in Adams, Tennessee. The haunting is associated with the Bell family and their farm, and it is one of the most notorious cases of poltergeist activity in American history, or I guess folklore. While the events are often considered to be part of local legend, they are widely told, now by us I guess, and have been studied and trying to figure out what exactly is happening. Anyways, here's a brief overview of it. The haunting reportedly began in 1817 when John Bell, the patriarch of the Bell family, encountered a strange-looking animal on their property, and after this incident, the family started experiencing unexplained phenomenon, including strange noises, knocking sounds, and physical attacks. The entity is often referred to as the Bell Witch, and it is said to be a malevolent spirit with the ability to communicate. It would often engage in conversations with the family members, displaying knowledge of private information, and making predictions about the future. The entity claimed to be a former neighbor named Kate Batts, who believed that she had been cheated by John Bell when he purchased the land. The Bell Witch is known for its mischievous and sometimes harmful behavior. It would pull hair, slap, and torment family members, and the haunting gained widespread attention from people in neighboring communities. The haunted began getting widespread attention and became famous, and people from all over have visited the Bell farm to witness anything that has happened. In 1820, it was reported that the entity took credit for the death of John Bell. I don't know if that's true or not. The entity claimed to, I assume the entity talked to one of the family members and told him about this, and then the family member told, I guess, the news or whatever. Not that the entity itself told the news, but it apparently poisoned John Bell, and then he died in a mysterious circumstance. So yeah, I mean, it's been around for a long time, and it's now a prominent part of Tennessee folklore. Honestly, I feel like it'd be a really cool spot to visit as Horror Highway if we ever evolve to ghost hauntings. And then there's also Bell Witch Cave, which is located near Bell Farm, and it is also associated with the haunting. Many people believe that the cave is the focal point of paranormal activity, and that it holds a connection to the events of the Bell Witch haunting. Today, the cave is also a popular tourist attraction, so yeah, hopefully one day we could visit this place and not get hurt. 1993 Nashville tornado outbreak. On March 14th, 1933, a tornado outbreak started in Tennessee, which would spawn at least 5 tornadoes. Of the 5 tornadoes accounted for, 2 were F2, 2 were F3, and 1 was F4 on the Fujita scale. Of those tornadoes, only 1 would not be in Tennessee, and the one that wasn't was an F2. All 4 of these tornadoes would take lives, in total claiming around 44 people and leaving 461 injured. This tornado outbreak would only last for 3 hours. Nashville tornado outbreak. From March 2nd to March 3rd of 2020, a total of 2 tornadoes would hit Tennessee and Alabama. These tornadoes were a part of a larger tornado outbreak that same year that had a total of 15 tornadoes. One of the tornadoes was an EF3 and the other was an EF4. EF stands for Enhanced Fujita. As of 2007, the Fujita scale was dropped in favor of the Enhanced Fujita scale. The main difference was EF scale better reflects tornado damage. EF3 tornadoes start up to 136 and cap of 165 miles per hour, and EF4 start at 166 miles per hour and cap off of 200 miles per hour. Both tornadoes would cause 25 fatalities and leave 303 injured, and would cause $1.6 billion in damages. Shiloh National Military Park. The Battle of Shiloh stands out as one of the most harrowing battles in the entire Civil War. Its grim distinction lies in being the bloodiest conflict in American history at the time, with a staggering 23,000 casualties, spanning over 5,000 acres. The Shiloh National Military Park holds the remnants of this brutal battle, but it is the Shiloh National Cemetery that carries the haunting, I guess is what you would call it. Within the cemetery, there's over 3,500 Civil War soldiers that were laid to rest there, and nearly 2,400 of them have no name or no known history to them. And as you wander the cemetery, if you listen carefully, you might hear the sound of muskets and the beat of a drum, and then sometimes the whispers of soldiers. The cemetery isn't the only haunted spot in the park. There's a pond that locals and visitors say occasionally turns red. And looking back at its history, this held a battle where both soldiers and horses' blood mixed with the water. So yeah, that one's kind of freaky. I do want to visit this place. I feel like seeing the pond and visualizing it turn red, I guess, would be pretty cool. I don't know if that's me being disrespectful. I'm sorry if it is, but yeah. Kingston fossil plant coal fly ash slurry spill. On December 22, 2008, at the local coal ash pond at around 1 a.m., a dike that was surrounding a pond of coal ash would break free. These would eventually lead to 5.4 million cubic yards of land to be covered by sludge, and an estimated 1.1 billion US gallons of coal ash would be spilled and would destroy houses and cover roads, power lines, and railroads. And the spill would also leave giant piles of ash everywhere it contaminated the water with heavy metals. While no deaths were reported with the initial spills, afterwards there would be a reported 40 deaths and 250 plus illnesses related to cleaning up the disaster. Cleanup would be completed in 2015, and it would cost $1.1 billion. Thomas House Hotel, or also called the Red Boiling Spring, it was constructed in 1890 as a resort spa, stipulated on top of a mineral spring. The Cloyd Hotel faced its unfortunate demise in a fire in 1924, and then it was reconstructed in 1927 under its new name, Thomas House Hotel. This, I guess, new structure, hotel, had 3 fires, multiple fatalities, some of which are suspected to be homicides, various accidents, and even reports of cult activity. Guests exploring the premises experienced unexplained cold spots, shadow figures, hearing disembodied voices, and even waking up to beds that seem to have a mind of their own. One of the many ghosts that are believed to live here is the ghost of the daughter of one of the Cloyd brothers, and a guest who met a tragic end after falling from a horse and drowning in a nearby stream, both who allegedly manifest their presence frequently. So yeah, I mean, I think that'd be pretty cool to visit. I don't know. Super Tuesday tornado outbreak. On February 5th, 2008, a tornado outbreak would occur and hit 5 different states, one of these being Tennessee. The outbreak would last 15 hours and ended on the 6th of February. The day the outbreak occurred was Super Tuesday, which is the day the largest simultaneous number of state U.S. presidential primary elections of the U.S. primaries are held, causing the outbreak to be known as the 2008 Super Tuesday outbreak. 4 tornado emergencies would be declared for Tennessee, a EF2, 2 EF3s, and 1 EF4 tornadoes. These tornadoes will leave a trail of devastation in Tennessee. In total, these outbreaks would cause 57 fatalities, 425 injuries, and a $1.2 billion in damage. Layer 6. 2010 Nashville flooding. Starting on May 1st and lasting only till the next day, there would be a storm over Nashville. Parts of Middle Tennessee and Kentucky would be struck with severe flooding because of the storm. There would be a record-breaking 9.1 inches of rain, and by the next day the record would be broken again, receiving 13.5 inches of rain. This would cause the Cumberland River to rise 50 feet over its usual height, following a period of 36 hours, flooding many parts of Tennessee, causing damages in excess of $2 billion, and leaving a total of 31 dead in Tennessee, Kentucky, and Mississippi. Fraterville mine disaster. On May 19th, 1902, at the Fraterville mine, there would be an explosion caused by methane gas and coal dust. This explosion happened early in the morning, when most miners had just finished making their way into the mine. Rescue efforts had to be halted as there was too much methane, so sending in a rescue team to look for survivors would just lead to more casualties. 216 men and boys entered the mine to work, and of those, 190 were killed in that explosion, and the remaining 26 couldn't make it to the entrance due to gas and debris, so they had no choice but to turn back and go deeper into the mine. By the time a rescue team made it to them, it was too late, as they had died of asphyxiation only a few hours after the blast. On the walls of the mine, there would be notes to their loved ones. And yeah, it's pretty sad. Fuck. I really don't know what to say. Tennessee State Prison. The prison was built in 1889 and had around 800 cells. The prison quickly became overcrowded. One of the inmates that was in the prison was Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassin. The prison was shut down in 1992. The people who have entered the prison have reported the sounds of cell bars clunking, blood-curdling screams, and footsteps that seem to echo throughout the halls. And there is not just one ghost that haunts the prison, but instead many of them whose lives were taken by Old Sparky. They roamed the halls, causing visitors to hear screams, voices, and footsteps. Oh, also I should add, Old Sparky is what they called the state electric chair, and it was used to take the lives of more than 100 prisoners. The Coal Creek War. Okay, so before we get into the Coal Creek War, it's important to know that this labor uprising happened and that it was caused because of the convict lease system that was being used by the Tennessee Coal Mining Company. What this program did was allow prisons to lease prisoners to private companies for labor. And one thing the union workers at the Coal Creek realized is that a lot of these leased prisoners were black, and of the 120 prisoners working in the mine, only 5 were white, and quickly union workers realized another thing. Many of the black prisoners were imprisoned on false charges, and the union miners realized what was happening. The Tennessee Coal Mining Company was making it work around for slave labor. Another thing to note is the whole reason the TMC even started using the convict lease system was because the miners simply wanted to earn equal money, not script, which is currency that can only be used at company-owned stores, in which the TMC controlled the prices of everything there. This was also illegal to do, by the way, as well as to have a third-party check weigh-in man to check the workers' haul of the coal they mined, and not a company-owned check weigh-in man. This all happened in July, and a lot of stuff happens after this, but for the sake of trying to summarize this, basically in between July and October, the governor promises to do something about the scripts and getting rid of the convict lease program, but in the end nothing is done. Fast forward to October 31st. 31 miners decided enough is enough and burned down the TCMC stockade and seized the Coal Creek stockade, and managed to free 300 convicts that are being held there, as well as clothes and food for them. The mine then moved to Oliver Spring, and on October 2nd, they freed 153 convicts. This made the TCMC mad, and asked the state to send troops to help their company. And then they get sent 84 militiamen, and a truce was negotiated, sending some prisoners back, but not all. And then, on the fights that would break out between the miners and the militiamen, due to high tensions, each side slowly killing each other. This would go on till August of 1892, when after some miners took over some stockades again, freeing prisoners, and also took a fort, the governor of Tennessee finally seemed to have enough, and sent General Samuel T. Carnes and 582 militiamen to finally end this whole feud, ordering the men to send the prisoners to jail. This would put out a lot of fires known as the Coal Creek War, but it wouldn't end everything. That only really happened when the governor was finally replaced. Buchanan was replaced by Chief Justice Turnley, who let all the convict lease contracts expire, then made it so prisoners would only mine for the state and not compete in the free labor market. The largest flood in the history of the city of Chattanooga. The cause of it was heavy rainfall that affected the area, with the storm that brought the rain lasting for 4 days, from March 7 till the 11th in 1867. Only 2 days into the storm, the streets of Chattanooga were already on 4 to 8 feet of rain, plus with no proper warning for the people at the time. Many were caught off guard and unprepared by the flooding, causing loss of life. Later in the nights, there were reports of looting, and many businesses and cropland had been destroyed by the flood. After the flood, there would be a project that started to try and raise the city's street level by 1 story because of this. Carlton Plantation. This was built in 1826 and played a significant role during and after the Civil War. The 11-room home was used as a field hospital during the Battle of Franklin. About 300 soldiers were treated inside the home the first night. Half of them ended up dying. 4 Confederate generals' bodies were laid out in the back porch. Bloodstains still remain on the floorboards. The room with the most bloodstains is one of the bedrooms that was used as a makeshift surgery room. After the battle, many of the soldiers that died were buried in a cemetery on the grounds of Carlton Plantation. At dusk, visitors have reported seeing soldiers strolling across the fields, a general on the back porch, and the sounds of a cook who worked for the family during the war bustling around in the kitchen. So, yeah, haunted location. Cross Mountain Mine Disaster. On December 9th, 1911, an explosion caused by ignition of dust and methane gas would occur in the Cross Mountain Mine. This occurred as a buildup of coal dust, as well as a recent roof fall, allowing a pocket of methane gas to be exposed near the surface. And when a miner went near it with an oil lamp, the explosion would occur. Thankfully, people made their way to the mine in order to save the people that were stuck. They would be equipped with gas masks, canaries to detect methane gas, bringing water from local sources to put out the fires, and using another fan to ventilate the air in the mine. They would successfully rescue 5 of the 89 miners that entered the mine, and unfortunately, the other 84 were either killed in the initial blast or had died trying to find another way out. Layer 7. Battle of Nashville. 85,000 forces engaged in this battle. 55,000 were Union, 30,000 were Confederate. A total of 9,061 casualties. 3,061 were Union, 6,000 were Confederate. The Confederate General John Bell would try to break through Nashville in an offensive in order to make his way back to Kentucky to resupply and get reinforcements. John would reach Nashville on the 2nd of December, and George Thomas, which was the Union commander, would be urged to attack him upon arrival, but cited the lack of troops and severe weather on holding off until the 15th of December, 1864. The initial assault by the Union forces on the 15th didn't manage to do much to the Confederate forces, but by the 16th, and another attack would be successful on pushing the Confederate troops out and resulting in a Union victory. Battle of Shiloh. The battle begins with the Confederate Army surprising a camp of Union forces on April 6, 1862, and making them lose ground and retreating. But during one of the pushes, the general leading the Confederate forces, Johnson, would get shot and bleed out, making the next in line of command in charge, that man being Pierre G.T. Beauregard. As night is approaching and believing the battle a Confederate victory, he ends the attack. What the Confederate commander didn't know was that Grant would be receiving reinforcements that night, and by the next day at 6 a.m., the Union forces would then begin an offensive on the Confederate forces, pushing them back and gaining back the land they were holding. This is considered a Union victory, but Omar wrote here that it was a stalemate. I view it as a victory because the Confederate forces didn't achieve their goal. Battle of Fort Donelson. This battle lasted 3 days, from February 14th till the 16th. The reason of this battle was to take control of the fort along the river to provide control of the river, as well as ease of travel for Union forces. The initial attack was done by Union forces as they were trying to take the fort from Confederate troops, and at first the Union wasn't gaining any ground, and as the Union forces are retreating, for some reason the Confederate forces were told to retreat, which was kind of weird, since on that day, a boat tried to bombard the fort, and that failed. And now the Confederate managed to push the Union back, so they were successful 2 times at repelling the Union. But at the night of the 15th, the Confederate leaders at the fort entered a discussion of surrendering the fort. This resulted in 2 Confederate leaders, Floyd and Pillow, to abandon their men and run away, and a Confederate lieutenant, Cole named Nathan Bradford Forrest, would take his cavalrymen and also run. This left Simon B. Buckner in charge when the Union forces came to the fort on the 16th. Buckner waved the white flag and surrendered the fort. Battle of Stones River. On December 31st, Confederate forces would try to catch Union forces off guard. Despite the advantage of catching the Union forces off guard, the Union troops still managed to hold their ground, and by the end of the day, the Confederate forces ended up not being able to capitalize on their attack. On January 1st, there isn't a fight, but both sides are preparing for each other, and on January 2nd, Bragg would once again try to push their way through the Union forces, and almost did, but in the end they were unsuccessful, and the Union troops held their ground. Battle of Missionary Ridge. Starting on the 23rd of November, 1863, the goal of this battle was to not allow some of Bragg's troops to meet up and reinforce the Confederate troops of James Longstreet and Knoxville. It would be 2 days of not allowing the Confederates to advance past Missionary Ridge, until on the 3rd, when Union forces were told to retreat by Grant, but instead of listening to him, they kept pushing, and the Union Army broke through the Confederate forces and successfully made the Confederates fully retreat. The Second Battle of Franklin. 63,000 forces engaged in this battle. 30,000 were Union, 33,000 were Confederate. 8,578 estimated casualties, 2,326 Union soldiers, 6,252 Confederate. On November 30th, 1864, John Bell would try to catch Schofield troops that were making their way to Nashville. Schofield and his army from Ohio were aware that the Confederate General John Bell Hood's objective to try to break through to Nashville and disrupt supply lines for Union soldiers. So Schofield's troops would make their way to the town of Franklin, where Hood thought he could assault the army successfully. Fortunately, things didn't go his way, and Schofield troops would manage to hold out and push back the Confederate army, making it a victory for the Union Army. Layer 8. Paul Dennis Reed. He was an American serial killer known as the fast food killer. He was born on November 12th, 1957, and he gained a lot of notoriety for a series of murders that occurred in 1997 and 1998. Reed targeted employees of fast food restaurants, particularly those in the Nashville, Tennessee area. Reed's modus operandi typically involved entering the restaurants during closing time and forcing the employees into the back room at gunpoint. He would then bind and sometimes torture his victims before robbing the establishment. Afterward, he would brutally murder the employees, often by shooting or strangulation. The known victims of the fast food killer were from the following fast food establishments: Baskin-Robbins, Captain D's, and McDonald's. His crimes generated fear and panic in the community, especially among fast food workers. Reed was eventually apprehended in June 1997 when a survivor of one of his attacks provided crucial information to the police, and in 1998 he was convicted of multiple counts of murder and sentenced to death. Reed's appeals were unsuccessful and he was executed by lethal injection on November 1st, 2013 at the Riverbend Maximum Security Institution in Nashville, Tennessee. Thomas D. Huskey. He was an American serial killer convicted of murdering 4 women in Tennessee during the early 1990s. He was born in 1949 and he gained notoriety for his brutal crimes, which primarily targeted women in the Knoxville area. Between 1991 and 1992, Huskey committed a series of violent crimes, including rape and murder. His victims were often women he encountered in vulnerable situations. His modus operandi involved abducting and sexually assaulting his victims before murdering them. His crimes were categorized by extreme to violence, and in 1992, Huskey was arrested and charged with the murders of 4 women: Teresa Lynn McDowell, Patricia Knuckles, Sherry Smith, and Evelyn Brown. He was found guilty and sentenced to death. The legal process in Huskey's case involved appeals and challenges, as is common in death penalty cases. However, his death sentence was eventually upheld. He was executed February 4th, 2015 at the Riverbend Maximum Security Institution in Nashville, Tennessee. Glenn Rogers, also known as the Cross County Killer. He's a convicted serial killer who is believed to have committed multiple murders in multiple states, one of them being Tennessee. He was born on July 15th, 1962 in Hamilton, Ohio, and he gained notoriety during the 1990s for a series of violent crimes that spanned several states. He's suspected of murdering numerous individuals during a cross-country crime spree. His victims included men and women, and the crimes allegedly occurred in multiple states including California, Mississippi, Louisiana, Kentucky, and Florida. Rogers was known to be charming and manipulative, often using his social skill to gain the trust of the victims. He reportedly took advantage of vulnerable individuals, both men and women, to carry out his crimes. In Tennessee, he is believed to have committed at least 1 murder. In 1995, he was convicted of killing Tina Marie Cribbs in Van Nuys, California. He later confessed to killing Cribbs in Tennessee as well. He was captured in November 1995 in Kentucky after a nationwide manhunt, and he was subsequently convicted of murder in California and received the death sentence. Bruce Mendenhall. Mendenhall? I don't know. He's an American serial killer and former long-haul trucker driver. He was born August 9th, 1948 in Ohio. Mendenhall gained infamy for a series of murders committed during his travels across multiple states. His crimes took place between 2007 and 2008. His modus operandi typically involved picking up female sex workers while he was on the road, and then he would brutally assault them and murder them. His victims were often left in various locations, making it difficult for law enforcement to initially connect the crimes. He came to the attention of law enforcement when an attempted murder victim escaped his truck in Nashville, Tennessee in July of 2007. This led to a wider investigation revealing connections to unsolved murders in multiple states. He is believed to be responsible for murders of several women. The exact number of his victims still remains uncertain, but he has been convicted in connection to the death of Sarah Nicole Hulbert in Tennessee. He was convicted in 2010, and he was found guilty of the person I just mentioned, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While he was convicted in Tennessee, he was also considered a suspect in many unsolved cases throughout many different states, so yeah. Billy Ray Irick. He's an American convicted murderer who gained notoriety of the murder of Paula Dyer, a 7-year-old girl, in Knoxville, Tennessee in 1985. On April 15th, 1983, Irick, who was an acquaintance of the family, entered their home and murdered the young girl. He also did other things, but I don't think I should say them because it's related to a 7-year-old girl, so I'm sorry. I'm sure you understand what it is, but I'm not going to say it. The crime was particularly heinous, and Irick's arrest followed shortly after the incident. He was convicted of first-degree murder of Paula Dyer in 1986. His trial and subsequent legal proceedings revealed the brutal nature of the crime. The defense team of Irick's argued that he suffered from mental illnesses, but he was found guilty and sentenced to death. Like many of the death sentences, it had many legal challenges and delays, but he was eventually executed in August 9, 2018 via lethal injection at the Riverbend Maximum Security Institution in Nashville, Tennessee. So yeah, hopefully you got what I was trying to get at with the full story, but I wasn't going to say it. Hey, what's up guys? Again, welcome to the outro portion of the video. If you stayed this long, we appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what state I should do next in this series. Remember to check out the rest of the Darkest United States Iceberg series. Subscribe. I don't know, just all that stuff. Have a good day.